Hi, welcome to season 3 of the Credible broadcast. Today we are joined by James Garland, a seasoned marketing strategist with over 20 years in the health and e-commerce, and of course, Brian Fitzpatrick, CEO of Credible.
Hello, and welcome to Credible Live. It's nice to have Faith here with us today from our marketing team, one of our great producers on the Credible Live broadcast. And James, it's great to speak with you. I've been looking forward to this episode for a long time now, so great to have you on board.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Today, we're going to be talking about a very, very important topic. We're really going to uncover the credibility crisis in health and supplements. And, why do I say credibility crisis? Is because, by the way, I'm a big consumer of supplements myself, right? I've used them successfully to get myself off of pharmaceuticals, right? Because I'm not a big believer in using pharmaceuticals for wellness, okay? Pharmaceutical treats the actual symptoms and doesn't really address the cause. So I've really been about learning about about what is the cause and what creates this. But what I've learned is that there's a lot of bunk out there. There's a lot of noise out there in the supplements and nutraceutical side. And informally, a lot of people come to me and say, hey, what brand should I be looking at for this? What brand should I be looking at for that? And it all starts with transparency, compliance, and frankly, ethical marketing and ethical practicing. And James, you guys have a great brand, very good quality brand. I've been all over your website. We've been looking at your products. We've been looking at the things we typically look for trust and transparency. And, kudos to you guys, because you're doing a lot of great things with your brand. And to me, this supplement and wellness space, it's just booming. It's going crazy. So the global nutraceutical market is projected to reach $755 billion with a B by 2029. So growing at a compound annual rate of about 10%. And what's causing this? I mean, this is fueled by rising health consciousness. And we have an administration now that's talking about health consciousness, that's talking about the bad stuff out there and making some really cool changes. Okay. But it doesn't mean that you still can't get in trouble by using the wrong brand. So really, supplement marketing is what I say is oftentimes ahead of the science. So despite this boom, trust is still faltering. So what we really want to talk about is, we always talk about products with the FDA, but the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, or I don't know, is there like an acronym name for it? DSHEA or DSHEA. Okay. So that created the legal foundation for supplements that are sold in the US. But to me, it sort of left a gray area around things like compliance and claims. So James, the question is, the law sort of governs these dietary supplements, the DSHEA, but it gives companies sort of freedom to sell products without pre-market FDA approval. But this is where it creates gray areas, about what these brands can do, what these brands can say. So the real question is, from your perspective, how has this regulatory flexibility in this industry really shaped the industry, and where do you think the line should be drawn between innovation and accountability?
That's a big question, Brian, and I appreciate it. And I agree with you. I think there is a big gray area in the market. I mean, I'd say it's shades of gray from, the murkiest, can't see anything, to, relatively thick ice. So like you said, DSHEA was passed in 94. I want to set the stage for your listeners, because before 1994, and I'm going to date myself, I'm 44 years old. I remember that time frame pretty well. Back then, there was nothing illegal about making disease claims and health outcome claims, disease outcome claims about dietary supplements. In fact, dietary supplements were hardly even, defined by the FDA back then. Mm-hmm. So you didn't even really have to have a supplement facts label that outlined, in order which ingredients were in your product and how much of them and what the other ingredients were, what format was it in, what was the total weight. None of those things were regulated. And so back then, I oftentimes think of the anecdote, like these pamphlets that people would get in the 1890s about Doc Barton's miracle serum, regrow your hair, grow bigger muscles and grow 2 inches taller. Yeah, me too, Brian.
I have all those problems.
Right. I think as we hit our 40s and 50s, we all do. So it was legal to do that back then. And frankly, it was kind of legal to do that in 1993. And of course, this was problematic. This was problematic for one, because the American consumer was at risk of being victimized by unscrupulous players in our marketplace. We had unscrupulous players back then, and we've got them now. Now they operate in a different way. We can get into that. So you were allowed to say, cures cancer. Here's a clinical trial that showed tumors disappearing and bones regrowing and whatnot, because there was nothing in the law that said you couldn't. So brands were doing that, and people were falling for these Google ads and silly little sales websites back in the early 90s, and paying their hard-earned money and getting locked into subscriptions they couldn't get out of. And it wasn't good for anyone other than the scammers. So that was pre-94. Well, in 94, DSHEA was passed, and it was passed for two reasons, as I mentioned. One was to keep American consumers from getting victimized. The other reason was because our beloved pharmaceutical companies were upset that dietary supplements were eating into their profits. For instance, if a study comes out that says this nutrient or this nutraceutical beats Prozac or this antidepressant in these symptoms, like relieving these symptoms, that's not good for the manufacturer of that drug. They don't want to lose those sales, and so they heavily lobbied the United States Congress and House of Representatives to pass this legislation that limited our industry's ability to make these disease claims. And so the kernel of DSHEA, at its core, what it does is it regulates the industry by determining how we can talk about the products, how we can advertise them. In a way, it's wonderful. And in a way, it's a shame, because the American public, information is kept from you. I'm not allowed to tell you about disease outcome studies, about studies where X product resulted in 11 pounds of weight loss over 90 days, or X product helped prevent osteopenia and osteoporosis. I can't make those claims legally. And because it's not legal, we won't do it. Going back to the ethical marketing. Mm-hmm. A lot of our competitors do it. And the reason they do it is because it's so easy to do it and get away with it. And I'm sure you've seen plenty of that in your line of work. So that's the two reasons for DSHEA. We wanted to, or the pharmaceutical industry wanted to protect itself from lost profits, and the government wanted to protect American citizens from being victimized by unscrupulous players.
Well, you are right, though. I see a lot of brands that are making these claims, and as someone who genuinely believes in the power of supplements, but also works in compliance technology, right? I've seen how many great brands are overshadowed by others. So even though you're not doing it, it's overshadowing the good players that are cutting corners and making these questionable claims. And it really, to me, it's like a few bad apples spoil the bunch, Truly. and it causes. So what I'm really curious, though, is how do you overcome that as one of these positive brands, right? That is really focused on compliance, saying and doing the right things, really taking time with your manufacturers, not falsifying lab reports, which is happening in a large way. You guys are doing these things right, but the supplement market sort of rewards bold marketing, but that pressure can really conflict with integrity and truth. So the question that I have is, from your experience, how can brands strike that right balance between what you're supposed to do with DSHEA and also have persuasive marketing with ethical transparency? I mean, it's a balance. And by the way, we catch these brands all the time, because if they think nobody's watching, that's not true. Who's watching? Well, plaintiffs' attorneys are watching. Insurance companies are watching, your bank is watching, because they will cut you off if you're making these unethical claims, and then God forbid you end up in a lawsuit. So how do you balance all this?
Yeah, another great question, a heavy one. I kind of love these. Reel me in if I talk too much about it. So you're right. The the marketplace rewards bold advertising, and bold advertising, it goes back to those claims I mentioned earlier, regrow your hair, grow 2 inches, bigger muscles in 10 days. So those types of claims, they speak to like a human being's deepest desires. So of course, if we're upset about our height or our hair or our weight or our looks, whatever it is, we're going to respond on an emotional level to a claim that this product can fix that for us. Mm-hmm. Even if we're skeptical, there's part of us that's like, but what if it works for me? So it's hard not to look at those and want to click and want to buy and want to try. So that's one piece of it. The marketplace really does reward that. And I think that's just because human beings are so drawn to having their pains and their fears, cleansed away. The other part of this, you said the bank's watching, plaintiffs' attorneys are watching. Who else is watching? Google and Amazon, right? So the biggest marketplaces by far, at least here in America, are Amazon and Google. Of course, there's Walmart and other players. TikTok Shop is booming. But the real big ones right now are Amazon and Google. And they are getting incredibly strict as well about personalized marketing and disease claims, and even certain keywords. You may not make a disease claim at all, but you did say blood glucose levels on your listing. And so we're flagging that, and we want to look at that, and we want to talk it over with you. I think it's a blessing and a curse because, I've been in this industry 22 years. I do consider myself I don't want to say one of the foremost experts on DSHEA, but I don't meet too many people who can talk about it with me the way that I can. And it is challenging when Amazon or Google says, hey, we don't like this language in your listing. And then I have to explain to someone who, is not a healthcare expert, is not a supplement industry veteran, is not even a legal aid. They're just an employee, kind of like a rank and file employee. And they're arguing intricate FDA law with me, where I'm like, no, this is an approved health claim. There's nothing wrong with it. But they don't understand that. They just see the keyword that they're supposed to flag. So Google and Amazon are watching, and that is helping in many ways, and in some ways it's not. But the other thing the marketplace rewards, it's so pay to play right now. If you really want to get your product in front of a lot of people, you need to advertise the heck out of it. Mm-hmm. To advertise the heck out of it, that means you're spending a lot of money on pay-per-click ads, PPC ads, on Google, shopping ads, search ads, and Amazon ads, and of course Walmart and TikTok as well. Well, the way to spend the most money on your product to get it in front of more people than your competitor's product is to spend less on your product than they did, so that your margins are higher, right? So if you can pay $1 for your product and sell it for 50, well, your margins are outstanding. And that means that you could literally afford pay-per-click advertising that costs $22 per click and still be profitable when you sell and ship your product. And so the marketplace is incentivized. My founders, they've been aware of this for decades and took action on it 15 years ago. The marketplace rewards people making their product as cheap as possible and then advertising it as loudly as possible with the boldest claims possible. So you've already identified this is the issue. So how do we strike the balance? One, we try to get this information out there. Like, a lot of people don't realize 66%, this is based on studies done by Now Foods, our own government. There have been other third-party watchdog groups that have, purchased like armloads of supplements off of the various marketing platforms off there, Walmart, Amazon, etc. I want to be clear. I love Amazon. Amazon helps us get our products in front of people. I'm not disparaging them. But the people that take advantage of Amazon to sell fake products, adulterated products, dangerous products, I wish they'd stop. But yeah, so 66% of dietary supplements that are sold on these major platforms are either fake or adulterated. That means you can purchase CoQ10, for your ailing father's heart, and you've got a very good chance of either not getting any CoQ10 or creatine or fish oil, whatever the product is, of not getting any of the nutraceutical that you're looking for. Or if you do get it, it's well below label claim.
You're getting mostly a carrier oil or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like you might buy CoQ10, but then if you had it third-party tested, which Now Foods and some of these other watchdog groups do, it's just glycerin and coconut oil mixed together. There's no CoQ10 in it. Why would someone do that? Because it's cheaper. Because I don't think I'm going to get caught. So the marketplace rewards it. And then what do they do on their listing? They talk about how CoQ10 prevents heart attacks and lowers cholesterol and fights inflammation. All of these are illegal claims. You can't say those things. And if you're interested, I can give your viewers like a recap of what DSHEA says you can and can't say. Maybe we could get into that later. I'll let you guide the conversation, but
yeah, that will be helpful, because I mean, you're talking, and then you were also talking about, well, they're putting lab reports up. I mean, for the supplements industry, I see that every one of your product pages on your website has a lab report that goes with it. Right. So you don't always see that easily accessible. And when it is accessible, I mean, by the way, Credible has developed fraud detection technology on these things. And I can tell you that there's a lot of fraud out there.
Mm-hmm.
They're airbrushing a different product from a different lab report. They're changing if there's mycotoxins or microtoxins or lead, well, let's get that stuff out of there so we can, we were talking in the green room that any 6-year-old can do that in an Adobe program, and really make stuff up. So it's not only, I think, what they're saying, it's about what they're hiding and what they're not doing. Because if I test a product with nothing but a carrier oil and it shows it's got no CoQ10 in it, then that's a problem. But, I guess most people say, well, either A, the consumer is not going to look at it, or B, if they do, we're just going to modify the lab report.
Yeah, that's very true. The fraud, it's widespread and it's deep. And I think that's self-evident when you hear the statistic that 66% of products are fake or adulterated. I mean, that's a shocking statistic. You're more than likely getting defrauded every time you buy something, unless you buy from a company that is trusted, is verified, posts their certificates of analysis, does third-party lab testing. There's a variety of ways I think that you can develop a relationship with a company and kind of trust each other. But it is challenging. And if it's a brand that you've never heard of and they're selling on one of these big national platforms, you never heard of the seller, they don't post the supplement facts panel in their image carousel. And even if they do, but oftentimes I find these companies don't do it. Like I'll see a listing that says 800 milligrams of liposomal glutathione. The first thing I'm thinking in my head is, I know how much liposomal glutathione costs. And it's impossible. It's like literally impossible. I don't care if you're Walmart. You wouldn't be able to buy 800 milligrams of liposomal glutathione for that price, let alone sell it for that price and be profitable. I know that's fake.
Like this stuff isn't being bought in the black market in a side alley for cheap.
Right. Yeah. I mean, oftentimes what they're doing is that they're either trying to trick you. So you turn around the label and you read and, okay, sure enough, it's not 800 milligrams of liposomal glutathione. What they've done is they've done a proprietary blend. And it's 800 milligrams of that proprietary blend. And supposedly some of that blend is liposomal glutathione. Now, the rest of it, they've just got a list of different herbs and oils and things like that. And again, it's a 66% chance that what they say is in there is either low or not in there at all.
But I mean, but every misleading ad, and it's really, this just hurts the industry entirely. So from your perspective, I mean, who ultimately pays the price for this misinformation that's going on?
I think, at the end of the day, the American consumer, our neighbors, are paying the price. It's people that have not been empowered by the information needed to educate themselves to make an educated decision, right? That's probably a long-winded way of saying that. But if you don't know how to look out for the BS, you're probably going to get scammed. It's as simple as that. And so I've kind of, not to sound like some crusader, but I've kind of made it my mission. And, my founders I'm lucky enough to work for people where it's their mission too, to get the word out, like let people know that this is going on, that it's not okay, and that you might be getting ripped off. And if people come to our brand, wonderful. I'm more concerned with people just not getting ripped off and act like, if you're in the dietary supplement space, if you're looking for a product, then you're trying to improve my health. That's the most important thing to me in the world, is my health and my family's health. I believe that most people, if you're like a multi-millionaire at 65, and I tell you you've got a week to live, or God forbid your daughter has a week to live, you would probably trade your entire empire, your whole kingdom, for better health and more time. And so, yeah, not to sound all righteous about it, but there's nothing more important. Obviously, if you would trade everything you have, every car, every collectible, anything you have to get better health, well, it's just the most important thing in the world, really.
Well, I have to tell you, I have to brag about something, by the way. I had something removed from my face a few weeks ago. It was basal cell carcinoma. It wasn't anything too serious, but I have a great doctor, Dr. Mark Abdamalik, and when he was doing it, he's like, "You've got really good blood," and I was like, "Wow, I've never been told that before." He said, "Yeah, really good blood." He says, "What?" And I said, "Well, I'm on these supplements," and he said, "Well, they're working." Because that'll do it, right? So it was almost a good affirmation that I was taking good brands. Why? Because I did my due diligence. But I'm not like the regular consumer.
Right.
I'm looking deeply. I'm using our own tools, right? I'm using our own repository to find brands that are trusted and validated and verified, because I'm just not going to take the marketer's word for it. I'm looking for brands like your company that are rooted in ethical behavior and doing the right things, and will make changes on the website. So it's not, misleading people, but that, isn't always the norm. You said, can you repeat that statistic? You said 66%.
Yeah, it's 66%. And they've done this. So CoQ10, creatine, we could literally talk our entire time slot about the ingredients that they've pulled and studied and found to be BS. In fact, the number one selling creatine on the biggest e-commerce platform in the United States was found to contain 0 milligrams of creatine, not one. If you do a keyword search for the word creatine or creatine monohydrate on the biggest sales platform in America, you will find that product. And you can go to the reviews. You'll see like, wow, it's only got 3.5 stars. Why is it so low? You can go to the reviews and see all of these people just calling them out. Like, we know about the study, trying to warn others. Is it working? I don't know, because that's still one of the highest ranked products, both organic and sponsored ranking.
So that just means they spend more money on marketing, right?
Bingo. Yeah. And what can we do about that? What can we do? Well, I mean, we could make a creatine and try to get the word out. That's like, we can't tell this platform, hey, pull that product down. Did you see this study? We don't have that kind of pull. We don't have those contacts,
Right. And this is, from me, this is part of my journey. It's because I think I've told you, I mean, I've really been on this wellness kick to make sure that what I'm putting in my body is the right stuff. But really, I don't want to end up one of those guys that finds out that he's, could have avoided a problem.
Yep.
And now I'll spend all my money to try to solve the problem, which is, in some respects, I mean, it's not that I think pharmaceuticals, there's no place for it. I mean, there is a place for it, obviously, but daily wellness to me just never made sense. Why would I be on a pharmaceutical if I'm doing the right things and I'm taking the right supplements? That is the key thing for me. So I've been very passionate about ensuring that consumers can find what these right supplements are, because somebody's doing their due diligence. And by the way, we get paid by all those other parties to do the due diligence on these companies. But my dream and goals and desires is to then release that information to the consumer. So we will be doing that soon. So all that work we're doing to say, look, these companies are verified, they're validated. And to me, that sort of is the future of trust and transparency. is in how technology. So I want to sort of shift a little bit more and talk about those things and talk about the role of technology to really validate trust and transparency, and how good brands like yours can separate from the noisy crowd of the 66%.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's another big one. Right now, I think, what we're doing, we're getting like third-party lab results, certificate of analysis for all of our products, right? All of our formulas. Mm-hmm. We post that on the website. So just using the internet and using the image carousel on a product detail page is one way to show, that, here's what's in it, here's what was put into it, here's what that tested out at. That's one way, I think, to communicate to people that this is the real deal.
Now take those and put them in our blockchain, lock it down with the smart contract ID, and then we can tell the world that you didn't monkey with it.
Yeah, I love that idea. I didn't know about that idea until we were chatting in the green room, but I do love that idea. I think, I'd say this question is almost too big to address concisely, but there's so many things you can do with regard to third-party tools. There's those, these reviews are verified, the brand hasn't monkeyed with the reviews or posted a bunch of fake ones or deleted the bad ones.
Right.
And so I would caution your listeners, if you're ever looking, it doesn't matter if it's a mattress or a vitamin C, if there are no 1, 2, or 3-star reviews, I personally would find that to be a pretty big red flag. Maybe the perfect mattress is out there, but generally somebody's going to hate it and they're going to leave a 1-star review. So if you don't see that, I would assume something's up there, and I think you'd be pretty safe in doing so.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it is a big question about technology, but I think in a marketplace that's crowded with bold claims and inconsistent standards, this is why we created Credible, because we're helping to rebuild trust in the supplement, the hemp industry by, even in things like, we're looking at mushrooms now. Like, nobody talked about, when we talked about mushrooms in the 70s and 80s, it was a much different conversation.
You're right.
Now we're talking about lion's mane, we're talking about reishi, and all these things that do have beneficial effects, but it falls in this same category. I mean, it may not have what you think is in there. So to me, by verifying everything on these websites, from the content to the things they're saying, to the things they're doing, to the lab reports, and then also validating these products in the back end, to me, that's compliance made transparent. It turns data into trust. It turns data and trust into accountability. And quite frankly, to me, it just gives a competitive edge where you don't have to outspend them on marketing. You just have to do what you said you're doing and actually deliver the results in the product. So the question is, how do people know that? And they don't unless you're either until it's too late, they've spent a bunch of money on it. And by the way, folks, this is why the credit card industry uses us to check on these things. Why? Because they don't like things called chargebacks. Okay. I just spent $500 on this stuff and I'm still 900 pounds, right? I haven't lost any pounds, right? Mm-hmm. Or it said it's going to cure male pattern baldness, and I'm still lighting up like a Christmas tree, right? So the key things here is, I think that health and wellness should not be a guessing game. If brands want to lead in the future, it starts with truth. And quite frankly, like your founders, it takes the courage to hold yourself accountable to a higher standard. So I would like you to tell our listeners about your brand and where they can learn more about your brand, where they can find your products. Because I really do believe you guys are doing some great things. And I've checked out your website. I've checked out your claims. We've run you through our engines, before we even agreed to have you on the show. So why don't you give a little pitch on your brand?
Sure. Well, thank you, Brian. I'd say that endorsement means a lot to me, and my founders too, and the whole team here. So we are Pure. I'm James. I'm the head of marketing for Pure TheraPro RX. Yes, I'm a marketer. But I consider myself more of an educator. Like, it's my job to make sure as many people know the truth about unscrupulous companies and about the good companies, and especially our company, right? Like that's my mission, not to like, I gotta get your money and I gotta get your sale. I've never been interested in a role like that. And I'm, again, thankful to work somewhere where that's not what their primary concern is either. So we're Pure TheraPro RX. We manufacture our own dietary supplements exclusively here in the United States in labs that are either well, all the labs are CGMP certified, which is the FDA's current good manufacturing practice. So many products are made in, garages and warehouses. Like, don't even get me started. We don't have time. Or we use NSF certified facilities, which is even stricter than FDA's CGMP. So I'd say most of them are NSF certified and CGMP. Some of our newer ones that are working on NSF certification are only CGMP. What's unique about us is that we never, ever use fillers, excipients, or flow agents in our products. I could talk for 20 minutes about why. I'll be concise and tell you that when you pick up a bottle of supplements, I've got a nasal spray here, and you turn it around and look at the supplement facts panel, right below that, it's going to say other ingredients. And oftentimes you'll buy, like, say, a magnesium glycinate or omega-3 or CoQ10. One ingredient, that's what you wanted to buy. That's what your doctor told you to get. That's what you researched. You just wanted CoQ10. But you look at the other ingredients and you see things like magnesium stearate, silicon dioxide. There's a bunch of them. Titanium dioxide, carnauba wax, caramel color. I could go on and on. A lot of these are frankly terrible for you. And the ones that aren't just outright terrible for you are questionable at best. Talc, rice powder. You might think rice powder, well, that's pretty innocuous. But then you look at all these studies about inorganic rice powder containing all of this inorganic arsenic, right? So is a little bit of rice powder and magnesium stearate and silicon dioxide and titanium dioxide, is that going to hurt you immediately? Probably not. It's kind of like one drag on a cigarette. 20 years from now, did that really have an impact on your health or your quality of life? Probably not. But if you have 10 supplements that you're taking, or even 5, and you're taking them twice a day, and you're doing that for 20 years, imagine how much of that stuff you're putting in your body, kilos of it, Brian. So it was incredibly important to my founders to not use those, because at best they're useless. They're just junk that you're putting into your body. At worst, they're triggering autoimmune reactions. They're causing inflammation. They're contributing to leaky gut syndrome. They are adding heavy metals into your body. I could go on and on. We cannot stand that stuff. We don't use it, and we do it at great expense, right? Like, the marketplace, I would say, rewards people that do things the cheapest. For these reasons, my founders have chosen to do it the most expensive way possible. Because when you partner with a co-manufacturer, like the people that actually, okay, we're gonna take these raw ingredients that you demanded we use, we're gonna put them in our big industrial machine, we're gonna fill your capsules and put them in the bottle for you. Those machines want silicon dioxide and rice powder and magnesium stearate, because those are like sand. They're flow agents. They help the powder flow through the machine without caking, without clumping, without gumming up the works, and get into the capsule smoothly. We don't care. I do not care how easy it is for your machine to fill it. We want it done the right way, right? So we insist on the best, hardest way of doing it. And that's why we have to be very careful about who we work with, because they have to have, the right people, the right skills, the right ethics to do it the way we want.
What is that website where people can learn more?
We're www.purethera.com. PURETHERA.com. You got to.
All right, folks. They are not officially credibly certified, but I have done my own research, not in depth, but I like what I see so far. They've got a really good track record in what I've been able to see unofficially at this point in time. But listen, as I said before, health and wellness is not a guessing game. This is your health, folks. And if brands want to lead the future, they're going to act like this company, right? They're going to hold themselves accountable. They're going to have the courage to do the right thing and to lead, because those other companies will eventually be found out. Now, unfortunately, when those other companies get found out, they rebrand under a different name and they come back. Okay, so that's one of the things that we have to be on the guard for. So the most important thing is that we can take care of ourselves, our health, and be fully knowledgeable about it by doing the due diligence. So I always say, be incredible. Faith, we got a great season coming up. We've got more great things. Anything you want to highlight for future?
Yeah, James, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed our pre-interview and this interview. Look forward to staying in touch.
Faith's a big fan, James. She was.
Great.
I am a big fan, James. I had a great conversation with you. I was excited to have you on.
Yeah, it was fun to chat.
Yep. Next week we have Verinder Das. He's the CEO of Wellness Extract. So he's going to be building trust in wellness from personal to transparent supplements.
Excellent. Good stuff. James, thank you so much for being on Credible Live. We appreciate it. And we hope to check in with you again in the very, very near future. And thanks to all of our listeners today for joining us on another edition of Credible Live.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Faith.
Thank you.